Hello and welcome to Womankind, a podcast on all things women. I'm Penelope Chan, editor of CNA Women.
And I'm Hidayah Salamat, CNA Women correspondent. Today we're asking, what's the dating scene like for women in this post-COVID landscape?
So for 2 years, many of us were stuck at home, unable to meet face-to-face with our friends, with our family. And a lot of us ended up having to resort to video calls and sometimes not talking much to people at all. So now that the world is opening up, we're asking the question, how are singles adapting? Are they slipping back into whatever routine they had before? Or has the pandemic impacted how they find dates? To give us some insight, we have in our studio Andrea Tan, who offers love and intimacy coaching through her company, Athena Rising. Andrea, welcome.
Hi, Penny. Hi, Hidayah. Thanks for having me here today.
So Andrea, let's cut to the chase. The big thing right now is dating apps.
Yes.
What do you think of them?
I do use dating apps myself, and I do work with women who have been considering dating apps, have been using dating apps for a long time. I actually quite like some of the dating apps. I think it's a great place to meet people. I think as long as we're in the right mindset, we are clear about what we want when we start using the apps, you can actually have a pretty good experience with the apps. I know that a lot of people have some very, terrible or not so fun experiences with the app. And I realized that a lot of times when I'm working with women, it's really how we approach the app. Yeah.
And which apps would you recommend as something you've had experience with and people often say, oh, this is a good one?
Well, I've explored apps like Tinder, CMB, Coffee Meets Bagel, Bumble, and Happen. I think you pronounce it as Happen.
Happen, how do I spell that?
Happn, without the E.
Oh, never heard of that one before.
Yeah, that one, I think it's a proximity app. I found myself spending more time on Tinder and Coffee Meets Bagel for a variety of reasons. Half of the time, it was also research for me and just to really understand what it was like. But I had a pretty good experience overall. Yeah.
There's one more. There's Hinge, right? I downloaded the app a couple of months ago and I thought that it was very interesting that they gave you prompts so you didn't have to come up with things to say yourself. So they will ask you to put up a photo that your mom would have on her fridge, for example.
Oh, I didn't explore Hinge, but Coffee Meets Bagel is a little bit like that, where they give you prompting questions. I think after a while, I just didn't want app fatigue, so I just didn't want to try too many apps. And I did a very Singaporean analytical way. I went on like top apps in Singapore. I think what's important with the app is you got to look for the popular one in that space. Otherwise, you're probably searching a very small pool. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you've had some very good experiences on the app. What would you say makes a good experience?
So I think at the end of the day, when you're kind of chatting on the app, even if it doesn't work out, it just ends in a chat, you at least don't feel like it's icky or gross. A lot of people have those icky experiences. And overall, I didn't really get app fatigue. I know a lot of people get frustrated after a while. They're like, how much more can I swipe? In fact, I think I was swiping wrongly on a few of the apps because they were all a little bit different. But even then, when I swiped wrongly on a profile, it was really interesting because I went in with the mindset of just to have fun, but that I would be protected in the sense that I know where my boundaries are. So if I don't feel comfortable with a conversation, I'll just stop. And going in with that mindset, and I know that I'll be probably in the app maybe about 10 minutes a day, I wouldn't spend too much time on it. And I swiped wrongly on a profile because I think in Tinder, swipe up is super like or something like that. But I didn't know that, and I'm an iPhone user. So iPhone user, when you close your apps, you swipe up, right? So there I was happily swiping up on many profiles. So I matched with this profile that was a really discreet profile. And it was someone who was actually in a relationship, but looking for someone discreet, like for a casual relationship. So the person asked me, can I just check that you swiped correctly on my profile? Because you might not have read my profile. And so I went to check it and I was like, oh, this is not what I'm looking for. Thanks for highlighting it to me. I might have swiped wrongly. Thank you very much and have a good day. And the person was like, yeah, have a good day. I hope you find what you want. And that was it. No drama, none of those, oh, I felt so used or icky. It was just a really interesting experience. And I had a really good time in general. So that was one of those odd things that happened that really stuck with me.
Thanks for sharing that story. We will talk a bit about mindset later because I'm sure that has a lot to play
It does.
in your dating life.
We've been talking about dating apps. We've been talking about experiences on dating apps. And when Hid and I were discussing this episode, I asked her, don't people date the traditional way anymore? Whatever happened to a friend introducing you to another friend, and then hopefully you hit it off with him or her? Andrea, what other dating avenues are common these days other than dating apps?
Well, I do agree with the whole thing about friends recommending someone because your friends know you better, so they obviously know who you might like, what type of characteristics might be more suited with you. So I still definitely recommend that. I mean, it's very informal. There are a lot of matchmaking agencies these days as well. I still find apps pretty efficient in that sense because you can work through a few profiles at one go. And for agencies, I found the ones that work for you is usually when the agent who's assigned to the person to assign you other dates, they are someone who understands your profile very well and they're very connected with you and they are very connected with other pool of people whom they can recommend to you as well. But I still find the ones where friends recommend, I still really like that avenue. When I work with women, I try not to stick to one avenue because the whole idea is if you are in the space where you are really just looking for someone and you're in a really good space, it might just happen anywhere. You might be really concentrating your time on apps, but you could be in the lift and someone just strikes a conversation with you and something leads from there. Or the blind date that you had didn't quite work out, but then because they felt that you might be interested in someone they know and then you get introduced from there. So I find that it's less on spotting avenues versus really just being in that space where you are open and just willing to meet people and the type of experiences you attract will really be quite different.
So, Andrea, we asked our readers to share with us the challenges they've had to face. One, her name is Norinda. She is 38 and she works in marketing. So she spoke of several issues, time and age, and how she prefers first meeting someone online, actually, because she's much better at texting than approaching someone in person. Let's hear what she has to say.
In the past few years, I've gone on dating apps since I'm much better at texting than just walking up to someone and introducing myself. I'm still actually quite shy and an introvert in person, so it's much easier for me to chat up with someone over an app and get to know them through flirting and bantering. For one thing, I'm quite a workaholic, so I spend my leisure time mostly resting or with family and friends. I find that the older I get, the more discerning I am with my time and energy and tend to focus on taking care of myself first. My second challenge also has to do with age. At 38, my pool of potential matches has been quite interesting as they're either really young or much older than me. I don't mind age gaps, but I'm also aware that there are certain factors like me wanting to be married but staying child-free, which may be a deal breaker for others, and especially when it's not fair to those who may want kids and starting a family.
To recap, Norinda struggles to find the time to socialize because she's busy at work and any personal time she has is spent on family. At 38, she's also finding it hard to meet someone who aligns with her values and goals. She's also a bit of a wallflower. So what kind of advice can you give her?
Well, there are a few things that I think stay true despite wherever you might be searching for that someone. And it's really have your own hobbies or your life. Like you have a few things that you're passionate about. Just really have those, keep those and be involved with those. Because that's where you're either going to meet someone or you're going to be able to have someone introduce you within that space as well. And you want to meet someone who's kind of aligned with you. And the whole thing about attraction is when your partner or someone who's a potential kind of sees you in your own space, when you're in your hobby and you're really enjoying yourself, that's when the attraction really happens as well. The other thing that I would mention is Norinda said that she had a few criteria to find someone really aligned with her. I have something called deal breakers, which I think a lot of people know. I always recommend 2 to 3 deal breakers. I coined this. I don't think it's a term, but it's not maybe breakers. So this is what I mean. We often have 2 to 3 criteria. And then when we meet someone and the person's kind of like 80% there, suddenly the deal breaker becomes a maybe breaker. So when I talk about deal breakers, these are really stuff that you will not budge on. And to kind of almost be ruthless about it. And the reason why I say that is because anytime we compromise on these 2 to 3 things, later down the road, we'll find that we kind of wasted our time. Somehow something didn't quite work out. And these 2 to 3 deal breakers, you don't have to tell anyone. It can be even stuff like the person has to be taller than you. For some people, it's a thing. Or you don't want the person to smoke or drink. Just have that 2 to 3 and really stick to that. Initially, I think a lot of women that I work with, they will be a bit worried. They'll be like, what if I'm missing out on someone with that 2 to 3 deal breakers? But the key is, because of that, when you finally do meet someone, it's really someone that you're really aligned with, because it takes away the 2 to 3 things that you might have issues with down the road. And it makes things so much easier in the long run. So there are these few things that I like to always emphasize, despite whatever avenue you may want to meet your person.
Do you think it's quite a challenge for women to differentiate between their maybe breakers and their deal breakers?
If you think you can live with it, they are maybe breakers.
Yeah.
So the deal breakers, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, the deal breakers have to be actual deal breakers.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, you may realize that your deal breakers change along the way. That's okay. I'm not saying that everything's cast in stone, but what I'm saying is at least have an idea. Because I think often when we start going to dating apps or just meeting people, we're like, I'm open to anything. So we talked about mindset earlier, right? It's a very confusing space to be in, to be open to anything. And I'm not saying that we need to have the 20 lists of criteria. You know, this is my person and it has to fit this 20 list. But it's more like, if you're open to anything, the energy that you get, you kind of also only get anything. It's a really interesting phenomenon. I find that the women who are really open to anything, the kind of experiences that they attract tend to always be about the 70-80%. Almost there 70%, but not quite there 20-30%. And a lot of them, I find, attract situationships. So situationships where the guy's like, sometimes sure, sometimes not sure. And then, you know, they're like friend zone, not friend zone.
Non-committal.
And the woman's like, no, I want like commitment and relationship. And I'm like, okay, let's get clear then. What do you want? And I think once we have the idea, whether do you want casual relationships, do you want committed relationships, once that energy and mindset is a lot clearer, you will find the deal breakers that you form gets a little bit clearer. Then the type of people that you attract will then be a lot more aligned to what exactly you're looking for versus anything is okay. Let's see what comes. And I get that it's very tempting because we're like, what if I don't have enough chances? So let me open the net a little bit more. But that's precisely the tricky part in dating. Because when we're dating, we're starting to narrow down to that one person. And if you're kind of like saying, I want to meet anyone, it's also very hard for friends to introduce to you. It's also very hard for the guy who's like, okay, are we vibing here? I'm not sure because I'm not sure what she's attracted to.
Actually, I think filtering out the maybe breakers helps a lot in making sure you find someone who really aligns with the values that are most important to you. I think post-COVID, especially, women have been more aware of what they want or what they really believe in, and so they know that their partner also has to believe in this. I think it's much less about the surface stuff. Do you agree?
I think it can be both. That's why I say don't have to tell me what your deal breakers are. But yeah, you're right. It's about women getting clear and knowing what they want and what they won't settle for in a relationship. I'm not saying about being difficult and high standards. Nothing like that. We're talking 2 to 3 criteria or just being a lot more clearer about what you want. And the thing with that is that we often try to put our best front when we're dating or we're texting and everything, but you don't want the other person to kind of be interested or attracted to an image of what you're trying to put out. At best, you want to be as authentic as you are. So that's really also kind of going in line with that, trying to get to a space where you're a lot more authentic. So whoever you're attracted to is attracted to who you actually are. And in the long run, that just makes for great relationship sense.
My sense of it is that women are looking more for connection now, and they are focusing more on values, and they're being clearer about what their values are. So I think there's been quite a lot of inner work in that sense, because they're thinking about who they are. They're asking, who am I? What do I really like? What do I stand for? And then taking that bundle of values, then looking out and saying, okay, what's out there now on the dating apps? What's out there when friends are going to introduce me to friends of theirs? And that, I think, helps them to narrow down in their minds a lot more compared to, say, maybe pre-COVID, where it was more of anyone you can introduce to me, I'll go out with them and I'll see how. But I think that see how isn't so much in the picture anymore. What do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's almost as if we had this long period of slowdown. And there was a long time where we couldn't even be connected with people, family, or even friends. We were very distant physically. And I think that shocked a lot of people's systems. And then from there was almost a chance to go, okay, as I bring my life back to somewhat normal, who are the people I want in my life and what I want to put in my life and what are the things I want to do. I got so many things to do. So in terms of what they put their energy to, I think that has changed as well. And of course, during the pandemic, because it was just so difficult to physically meet someone, the apps also have gotten a lot more popularity and people are like figuring out, okay, what's the best way? Suddenly technology is there, so let's use technology and see what comes out of it.
I think there's a sense of I want to make the best use of my time because I've lost 2.5 years to COVID. I couldn't go out, I couldn't meet people, and even when I could go out, all the options were limited. So now that I can, it's so precious. It's so precious for us to have this now that we don't want to waste time and we don't want to waste the other person's time as well. So if the moment you get a sense that it may not work out or, it's not quite right or we're not quite aligned, then we may say, okay, it's not working out for both of us. It's fine.
The thing with dating is while we can talk about techniques and mindset and energy and how you want to set out your profile, how you want to talk to people and things like that, there is always an element of chemistry. And that's something that you really, really cannot engineer. And if sometimes you can meet like 10 different people on first dates, but if the chemistry is not there, there is really nothing you can force. That's why I said a good experience on the app, because I did chat with some people. I felt very nice chatting with them, but there just wasn't a chemistry. And I think letting go of that drama instead of trying to force something to make it happen is very important. It's a very important lesson for us overall, not just in dating, right? If we know who we are, if we know what we love, what we like, what we don't like, do we need to force ourselves in certain situations? It's a lesson in self-love as well. So I felt that all these things kind of came out through the pandemic in some way or another.
So my next question for you is, what challenges do you see that women may face when it comes to finding a significant other?
Yeah, especially in this post-COVID climate.
For some people, they felt that they wasted 2.5 years. And I feel like some of the challenges comes from a lot of fear, like, am I running out of time? These are things that often work against us when it comes to dating. Because honestly, we do have plenty of time based on our life expectancy, based on the experiences that we will have. But that's one of the challenges where at the back of our mind is, am I running out of time? Somewhat this ambiguous benchmark that we're supposed to have. I think the other challenge is that there is just so much technology. So it's not just apps. You're like, have so many communication channels. There's so much information overload in so many different channels. And when you're really dating or getting to know someone or just looking to meet people, it takes time. You'll have to be somewhat invested emotionally and mentally just to chat with the people and figure out whether you have similarities and find some common point. That takes energy. And sometimes with today's world, there's just so much channels. And I recall this movie, I think it's called He's Not That Into You. It's a really old movie.
He's just not that into you. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, and I think it was in that movie where it was one line where one of the stars was lamenting, oh, now there's so many channels and you can break up on like so many other channels besides just text. And I think it's just amplified today. So that's really one of the challenges, because technology can evolve, but our basic communication skills, how we talk about what we want in a relationship, how we break up properly, how we separate properly, these are things that I feel many people are still learning and getting used to, and the increase of technology does not help.
I like the points that you made about time and energy. I think it's very real. And particularly for women, when we talk about time, we're also thinking about how much time do I have left to get pregnant. The longer I wait, the less I may be able to have a child. And for some women, I feel it's very real to them because they do want to start a family. But at the same time, dating and finding a life partner isn't something that can be rushed. And then at the same time, you have not much energy. There's just so many things to do. We're pulled so many different ways, especially for women, that when it comes to making the effort, I think a lot of women just think, I'm too tired. I'm tired of trying too. And I'm tired of giving so much energy to this only to be disappointed time and time again.
Yeah, as Amy Winehouse says, love is a losing game. So it's Amy Winehouse, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before in a few of my talks. Dating requires a little bit of tenacity. And it's just the way it is. It's not that it's hard, but it's almost like a sport in that sense. And we've got to know how much to invest in ourselves in that activity. Do we have friends that support us? That's why I say, do we have your own hobbies and your passion? Those things are important. Your life outside all of that is also important. The career that you're building or the business that you're building. And it does require a little bit of faith in that sense. That's why I say that chemistry part is important, and a little bit of tenacity. I find that those who tend to be like, oh, this is tiring, or I can't deal with this yet again, or is it another app? I find that those women are usually at the point where they've kind of invested a lot of attention in that area. And the thing with dating, I noticed, the more we do, the more we tend to confuse dating and relationship. So I say this a lot as well. When you're in a dating courtship phase or just getting to know someone, be very careful. You're not in a relationship phase. And a lot of women like to go very fast, mentally in a mindset. We're like, where are we headed? Where's the next step? Where are we in this relationship? And then the guy's like, oh, okay.
We're just dating casually for now.
Yeah, and so that's when a lot of them feel like, oh, I put so much energy and I just don't have any more energy for that. I'm not saying be super detached, but just know which stage you are in so that you don't stress yourself out as well. It's supposed to be fun.
Let's talk about mindset now. What kind of mindset work do you do with your clients? What kind of mindset works against a woman finding love, and what is the ideal mindset?
Self-love and self-worth is one part that I work very strongly on. It's a little bit of a cliche, where they say you got to love yourself first and then you can go out there and date and stuff. I'm not saying that you need to 100% love yourself before you go out and date. But the whole idea about building up self-love and self-worth is important, because then you know how much of yourself you are comfortable to show others, how comfortable you are being vulnerable in front of someone new that you're meeting. Also depends on how much self-love and self-worth you have, whether you are willing to state certain boundaries. And that's very important through the dating process and in meeting someone that's matched to your wavelength in that sense. The other thing that I look at a lot when it comes to mindset is also being very clear about what you want. And like I said, it's less about the 20 criteria, but being very clear in terms of the type of relationships you want versus like, oh, anything goes, we'll see what comes about. And I see this time and time again. Anytime you're very ambiguous about that, like, I really want a committed relationship, but in between, if some fun stuff comes along, okay, we'll go with that and see how that goes. And I'm not saying choose one or the other, but be very clear about what you're looking for, because once you are, it's almost as if the conversation changes and the type of profiles that you attract also has that slight shift as well. And I noticed that with even stuff that I was looking at when I was in the apps previously. And of course, for some women, because they have past hurt or past betrayal in their other relationships, especially for those in heterosexual relationships, I get them to look at how is their relationship with the other opposite gender. That's some mindset work to look at as well. And I find that in allowing that relationship to heal, it doesn't always have to be a romantic relationship, but we are always surrounded by the opposite gender, relatives, family, or even friends and close colleagues. When they heal that as well, the process of dating becomes a lot more fun, a little bit more lighthearted. There's less of like, all men are terrible and I'll never find someone. There's less of that energy. So those are some of the important mindset stuff that they ideally should work on. Yeah.
What are the mistakes you've observed that some women make when it comes to dating? We want to go into dating feeling that we are successful at it. So how can all these mistakes be avoided?
Well, none of this I say is going to ensure that everything's going to be smooth sailing. Sometimes you're just going to meet not so aligned people and not so nice people. We mentioned a few things earlier, but one of the key things is don't rush. You have all the time in the world. It's almost like a mantra I get people to remember. You have all the time in the world. Because when we rush, the deal breakers suddenly become maybe breakers. Suddenly a lot of things we compromise on and then find that it doesn't quite work out later on. We're almost fighting against a very ambiguous timeline. And all this stress puts a lot of strain on just that whole process of dating. When you're dating, you want to have fun. Even if it's just to get to know someone, why do you want to be stressed with like a tiger on your back in that sense? So really don't rush. And some of the things that we've also mentioned earlier about not mixing up the relationship stages or the dating stage, like whether you're dating, courtship or relationship, don't be too quick to move into the relationship phase. Take all your time. Dating and courtship is actually really fun. Once you get into a committed relationship, actually that dating and courtship phase is kind of over in that sense. It's a very different form in a relationship phase. So savor that moment when you're getting to know people and don't be such a hurry to find out where does this lead to next within the short few months of getting to know someone. Yeah.
That's really good advice. Thanks for sharing that. And for the sake of our listeners on our Womankind podcast, we like to offer some solutions that they can take away with them, that they can take action on. And so I want to ask you, what are some books or thought leaders that you can recommend on this subject?
So she's not just purely on dating, but she works on relationships. I really, really love Esther Perel because she also looks at intimate relationships and how attraction forms between two people. For women who are trying to figure out men, and I get this question quite a fair bit, Alison Armstrong, she's a whole great series of books. When I talked just now about healing the relationship with the opposite gender, it helps you understand the opposite gender a lot better. I do share dating tips on my Instagram, TikTok, just short bites. And hopefully these are good reminders for people who may chance upon them. So that's another place where I hope people can also gain some inspiration.
And your Instagram handle is?
My Instagram handle is the Athena Rising.
Okay.
THE, then Athena Rising.
That's the end of our episode of Womankind. We hope it gave you some useful new perspectives that you can learn from and apply in your own life. We'd love to hear from you, so if you have an idea for the podcast or a view on today's topic, or just want to share some feedback, do reach out to us. Details are in the show notes.
Before we sign off, here are this week's words for womankind by Belgian psychotherapist Esther Perel. Instead of looking for a person who checks all the boxes, focus on a person with whom you can imagine yourself writing a story with that entails edits and revisions. Something to think about. And with that, I'm Hidayah.
And I'm Penelope with our guest Andrea Tan, and this has been the Womankind podcast.